is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Well, very pleasant. Good afternoon on another cold winter day throughout most of the land. Snow day for some, more snow in the forecast. The SEC has become snow central in recent weeks. We welcome you now, folks watching in Boston and elsewhere know, hey, welcome to the real world. Good afternoon. A lot going on today and a really big show on tap. A former Arkansas quarterback will join us shortly to give us his forecast on how the Hogs look for the upcoming season. He is Clint Sterner, and he'll be right here in just a few minutes. Everyone remembers Clint played on some big-time Arkansas teams. A couple of years ago. We won't date Clint yet. And some conversation about franchise players in the SEC from our friends from Saturday down south. Which SEC coaching jobs have the most upside? Talking about football, aren't we? I hope. Thank goodness. And then back to basketball with Sean Farnham. He's at a game tonight that will get a lot of attention around the country. And then tomorrow night, those Kentucky Wildcats are back in action, assuming they can navigate the snow in the south, which tends to shut things down. There's a big part of the south expected to get snow tomorrow, so beware. Get the milk and bread now while you can. Anyway, also your phone calls at 855-242-7285. Also, we will also discuss the court storming incident. That hasn't happened too often in the SEC, but you might see some Arkansas fans storming the court Saturday at Rupp Arena, all 20 of them, if they get a win. That's been the big topic for a couple of days. Arkansas fans continuing to beat their chest, but you were telling me a moment ago they have a game tonight?
I think. They host, I believe, A&M, who's, according to Joe Lunardi, in the tournament field as we speak. The fans have been looking ahead to Saturday for a couple weeks now on the show, but to me, Texas A&M is the quality of opponent that Arkansas will see in the first round, maybe second round of the NCAA tournament. So it's a nice measuring stick game for them, as well as Saturday can be looked on in that same light.
Yeah, but it's on to Rupp Arena. Forget about the home game tonight. A lot of games on the board tonight and tomorrow night, weather permitting. And I don't mean to make a big deal about the weather. I realize people are watching us from various parts of the country, but you've never lived until you've lived in the South when there is snow in the forecast. We woke up today with blizzard-like conditions. We still made it in, but in Mississippi and in Alabama, things usually close down pretty quickly. Tennessee bombarded in the last week or two with snow. Arkansas, dangerous conditions, some even dipping into Louisiana. Kentucky was hammered. So South Carolina is on the list as well. So just as you put on the television and you see pitchers and catchers and A-Rod reporting to spring practice, the winter of 2015 continues. So beware out there if you're in the storm's path. Lance starts us off in Jasper, Tennessee. What's up, Lance?
Hey, brother.
Hey
I
there.
just want to let y'all know, man. See, I was born in 1980, Paul. I'm a child of the 90s, and I'm like you. I like basketball way before I ever liked football. So I'm a Duke fan, naturally.
Okay.
But I love Gator football, man. I just want to get that clear with you. I know a lot of people say you can't be a fan of two schools, but that's just where I grew up, man. But there wasn't no like Jordan's Bulls in the 90s, son. You wasn't watching football when Jordan was playing. But I just want to say one thing about SEC basketball, man. I'm a Duke fan. I understand. It ain't biased. It's factual, son. I've seen church leagues more competitive than the SEC, man. Take Kentucky out. They ain't got no good teams, Paul. How many times are we going to sit here and act like the SEC's got a basketball league when they don't? And they probably never will. They're like the ACC, Kentucky, Florida State. I mean, you agree with that?
Well, I really don't completely agree, but yeah, I think you can't make that determination on February 24th, Lance. You do have to wait to see how it turns out. And you've heard me say I thought the SEC got a pass last year. I thought the league was horrible during the season. I thought there were a couple of interesting games. We talked about Arkansas ad nauseum, but for the most part, it wasn't a very good league. and you saw a couple of coaches fired. You saw one or two that should have been. And this year it is better, but it's still to be determined. What Joe Lunardi says in January and February doesn't matter. It's what happens in March.
You're right, Joe Lunardi. He's like Tom Wilkerbill. He's the man. You can book it. But one thing that helped SEC last year was, like you said, Kentucky got back in it, and I don't think Florida was supposed to be good last year. That Scotty Thurman kid, whoever, he had a hell of a year. I know he's SEC Player of the Year. I think they came out of nowhere, but I still don't, man. I think church league's more competitive than the SEC basketball league. They're talking about Arkansas.
By the way, which church leagues would you say are better than the SEC in basketball, Lance?
I can take you some there in Tennessee right now.
Okay.
There's some in Jasper right now to be SEC teams in basketball. Well, I'm going to tell you, man. They got them, man.
Okay, Lance, thanks. Listen, I mean, if your church league is better than the SEC, please call us. We would love to hear, and we'll send a camera crew down. Chase is in St. Louis. Hey, Chase.
How you doing?
Okay, thank you.
I feel like I've been a Gator fan big part of my life. Most of my life, I grew up in Florida. I live in St. Louis now. But I feel like my Gators are way closer to being elite, especially in the SEC East, more so than most. I feel like with McElwain coming in and Will Greer on campus, I feel like we have a chance to be a great football team.
I'm sorry, Chase. What was that? You said you think they're close to being elite? Elite? Is that what you said?
I feel like we're closer to being elite, especially in the SEC East than most.
I mean, my question would be how can you make that statement?
I feel like, with what we return on defense, I feel like,
Okay.
we should return one of the better secondaries in the SEC. I feel like,
that's fair.
I feel like our offense, we do have playmakers. I feel like, but McElwain and his staff should do a better job at developing playmakers since Muschamp was such a defensive-minded coach. And I don't feel like the work went into play so much as to developing our offensive playmakers that should have. I think Will Greer can do it. I honestly feel like Will Greer can do it.
Okay, well, listen, you're not alone in thinking that. You have to do it, though, in the SEC, as you well know. Thank you very much for the phone call. Walter is up next. Hey, Walter, good afternoon.
Hello, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I was just telling John, and that's a nice man.
Yeah.
I was just telling him, I remember when John Wooten said, they asked him about all the championships he won. He said, how'd you do it? He said, I took the best 5 players in the United States and I coached them up.
That's pretty good. John Wooden was the greatest coach ever.
Right, and like I'm saying.
All due respect to Bobby Knight.
Yeah, right. But you could send me, I could go to Kentucky and coach that team, and I might have lost the game, but I would still be, we'd be champions.
Well, I would disagree, and everyone thinks it's easy. I actually think it's pretty difficult to coach that much talent because keeping everyone on the same page, keeping everyone's ego checked at the door, and keeping them working, just because you have talent doesn't mean you are going to win. It doesn't matter what sport you're in. I mean, the best teams. I mean, it's a cliche to say. I hate to say it, but don't always win, and that goes for every sport.
I'll agree with you. But don't let me living in Laurelville, Louisiana, fool you either, because I'm a diehard Razorback fan, have been and always will be.
Well, you're going to like our next segment. We have a pretty famous Razorback quarterback coming in here to talk to us.
Okay, I remember him, Sterner.
Yeah, Sterner.
He's a good quarterback. Anyway, Paul, I enjoy your show, and John, you're a nice man, and I'll get off here and let some other people talk to you.
Thank you, Walter. A vote of confidence for our next guest, Clint Sterner. He's a nice man, according to our friend. John is up next, another John in Albany, New York. What do you say, John?
Hey, Paul. How would you rate the SEC football recruitment by team?
You mean what we just got through seeing or generally?
Generally.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it's a broad question, but certainly in the last 7 or 8 years, Alabama's been the most dominant. I think that's easy for me to say. Does anyone know what that was?
I guess he was celebrating the fact that Alabama was the best. That
was a really big surprise there that Alabama is the most dominant team in recruiting. Philip is in Kentucky. Philip, what's up?
Hey, Paul, I think he was doing what I seen last night. You talk about a bombardment of a storm in Kansas State. I mean, I don't really understand why ones do that. I have never seen a national ranking of fans storming the court. Have you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've heard the saying in basketball and football, which schools will tear the goalpost down, which schools will storm the court, and why. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, there's a trickle down effect of it. It's a domino effect. You see it on television, and then you want to take part. I mean, why do people do stupid things? I mean, I've been on fields. I've been on both. I mean, basketball is a little more dangerous because you're running over tables, and in football, it's such a bigger area. But I've seen people seriously hurt, if not paralyzed, from jumping on goalposts. And I don't want to say I wasn't a crazy student once. I was, of course, but I don't completely understand it. And I know one thing: people are analyzing it today. It's a big topic of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Southeastern Conference. They have not major fines, but they have fines for that. But I could not see. Someone like me, you and John, of course, we're older, jumping out on the court like that, just diving out. It just, I understand they're excited about winning, but, there just comes a point where a fan is a fan and a fanatic is a fanatic. And this is only meant to criticize those who just went crazy. Now, someone from Kansas State could call in if they weren't involved in that. Let me know how they feel about it. I just don't think they should do that.
Let me say one thing about it, though, and I'm not giving anyone a pass. It's a dangerous thing, and I've never been to a game yet where the public address announcer didn't warn students to stay off the field. I mentioned student. I get if you're 17, 18, 19, and you run out there. I mean, it's your school. It's a great moment. You beat Kansas. You beat someone else. It doesn't make any difference. What I don't understand are the adults running out there. I mean, they really should know better. They know the risks. They've seen the stories. But they become consumed or intoxicated, or maybe they are intoxicated by the moment as well.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We're joined by Clint Sterner, the legendary quarterback for Arkansas, now living in Little Rock. And I wanted to start this segment, Clint, by asking you about the quarterbacks in the SEC. And you're obviously training young quarterbacks. You need to keep working at it because the SEC has seen quite a dip in the quarterback position.
Yeah, there's a lot of turnover in the last few years, and the good thing about that, if you're an Arkansas fan, is that I'm a firm believer in the fact that if a team's got a new quarterback with limited experience or no experience under center in a game-type situation, anything can happen, and anybody can beat anybody on any given Saturday. So it's fun to talk quarterbacks. It gives everybody an opportunity to win, and then you never know. The next Johnny Manziel may be born this year in the SEC. So we'll see. It'll be fun to follow.
Well, certainly from a broad perspective, it was big news that Dak Prescott decided to come back. Let's talk a little bit about the top, and then we'll work our way through. Prescott speaks for itself. Auburn has a starter that hasn't started, but most people are feeling pretty good. LSU, the mystery continues there. Arkansas is in good shape. A&M seemingly in good shape. Your overall view?
Well, I think it's first of all, let me say this. It amazes me that LSU is one of three schools, the other being outside the SEC, one of three schools in the country that it amazes me that they ever have a long span of quarterback issues. Seems like they've always got a question at the quarterback position, and it's tough to understand for me. So I try to follow that situation as much as I can outside of Arkansas. Saban will have somebody ready, and I think it'll be an upgrade. I think whoever takes that spot at the Alabama quarterback will be an upgrade for two reasons. Number one, they'll have a year under their belt of Kiffin's offense. And number two, I think he'll be more of a pro-style quarterback like those two guys, those two coaches like to have behind center. So that situation I think will improve. Josh Johnson at Auburn, he played lights out last year against Arkansas. So I expect him to be okay. But it's definitely going to be fun to watch Dak Prescott play. It's definitely going to be fun to see what happens at Ole Miss in that powerful offense, to see what happens there as well. So it'll be fun to watch it all unfold.
Let's talk specifically about Arkansas. We mentioned the history a moment ago before some of the audience had joined us. Clint Petrino had a top 10 program, maybe even trending higher, and he crashed and burned. John L. Smith inherited it and just made it a dumpster fire, and here comes Brett Bielema. When you first heard on that cold December day that Brett Bielema was leaving Wisconsin to head to your school, what was your? Come on, you can tell us. What was your immediate thought?
I was not a fan at all, and here's why. I think that when you hire a coach, if it's not 1A, it's 1B. Your priority should be is that coach, is his scheme and his philosophy and what he wants to do with his football team, does it match the personnel of the coach that's exiting? And there couldn't be a further difference in two coaches than Petrino and Bielema. So my initial thought was, personnel-wise, how long is this going to take? This could be a 3, 4, 5-year process to just see if it's a good hire. So for me, I was a little bit nervous about it, but I'm one that's done a complete 180 on Bielema. I cannot believe he's turned the corner the way he has. I can't believe he's done it in a year and a half. And hats off to him for the route that he's used.
What do you think he's done?
Well, I think he's done a great job with a sense of urgency of getting the right people in place. From the players to the coaches. Year one, he lets defensive coordinator, after the first year, he lets a defensive coordinator, Ash, he lets him go. He goes to Ohio State. He hires Rob Smith this year. It ends up being a home run hire. I think after 2 years, he realized that Chaney, wasn't necessarily a good fit for what he wants to get accomplished with this offensive football team, and necessarily what Jim Chaney has done in the past. And so he, with a sense of urgency, I think he made a change there as well, and hopefully that offensive coordinator change works out as good as the defensive coordinator change works. But so first it all starts with the coaches. I think those decisions. A lot of coaches sit around and go, well, we'll give you 1 more year, we'll give you 2 more years, we'll see if this works out. Brett Bielema understands there's a sense of urgency to get things right from the top down, and I think he's got those guys in place offensively and defensively at the coordinator positions. And as far as the players go, when they turned the corner against LSU this year with the big victory, the players had held onto the rope long enough to believe what Bielema was preaching. We didn't know. Hog Nation didn't know. The supporters didn't know. Administration didn't know. The players really didn't know if what he was preaching was going to work. And when they shut out LSU midseason, turned that corner, had a great November, ended the season great against Texas, there's a lot of believers in that locker room. There's a lot of believers in that building, in that program. And all in all, Hog Nation is a believer in what Brett Bielema is coaching and what he's preaching. And when you've got that kind of momentum, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, there is great momentum, but as you know, you've played in the league. Arkansas is living in the most difficult neighborhood in college football, the SEC West. So where is that line? Because it's not that much. It's tough to get to where Arkansas is right now. But it's much tougher to get to the upper echelon and stay there.
Sure, and the point of the story is the other guys are getting better as well, right? Alabama's going to get better. Auburn's getting better with Muschamp. LSU's going to get better. These guys are going to continue to improve. And Arkansas has done one thing, and I think priority number one for Bielema, in terms of what goes on in the field, he was going to create a physical mentality with his football team, and he was going to be able to run the football as good, if not better, than anybody in the country. And I think he's accomplished that. I think anybody coast to coast in any conference will tell you that you name the top 3 pro-style running offenses in college football today, Brett Bielema, although they only won 6 games, Brett Bielema, 7 games counting the bowl game, Brett Bielema and the Arkansas Razorbacks are a premier pro-style running team in the country. And I think that was priority number one. Now they've got to find a guy, a receiver, that can be a difference maker outside on the offensive side of the football, and they've got a chance to make a run. That is up in the air.
Help us understand Hog Nation, the Arkansas Razorback fans. We're hearing from them in basketball. We all know about the tradition, but it's unique. And I realize Arkansas has been in the league for 23 years, but there's still a mystery to some people around this league. What makes Arkansas fans so unique?
Well, I think it's the underdog mentality. I think it's a black sheep mentality. I think it's a blue collar state with one program, essentially one program, University of Arkansas Razorbacks that they support. They're probably extreme in every sense of the word. The passion is extreme. The anger is extreme when there's bad situations, which we've experienced recently. So it's that underdog mentality. It's that blue collar mentality, and those type of people tend to be passionate people, overly passionate people, and the fans of Arkansas are that way. And it's pretty simple. I mean, you put a fence around Arkansas, and you've just got a different brand of fan, and it all stems from passion and hard working, blue collar type people.
Well, because it is interesting because in Alabama you have the rivalry, and in other states they're border wars. I mean, Arkansas has rivalries with so many different schools in terms of that one opponent. Maybe different in basketball than it is in football, but who is it in football?
Well, unfortunately, it's probably Texas. If and they're not in the SEC. We don't get to play them. I think again until 2021. So outside of Texas, I would say LSU. For whatever reason, Arkansas always plays extremely well against LSU. They've beaten them in the past when they probably shouldn't have.
Oh, yeah.
And so that just goes to tell you that there's a little extra emotion involved and somewhat of a rivalry. But it actually works in Arkansas's favor because, I don't know, is Missouri their rivalry? We can act like it, and we'll go play harder against Missouri. We can act like LSU is. We can act like Ole Miss is. They're close in proximity, and so it works in Arkansas's favor as the coach can treat several of these players. These teams that they play, the opponents, as rivalries, as true rivalries.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, and I've been to Little Rock a number of times speaking, and haven't been there one time when Arkansas-Texas game in '69 wasn't mentioned. I know that was before your time,
yeah.
But that will not go easily in spite of Arkansas being out of that league for a very long time.
There's no doubt about it. I tell you, when we played, my last college football game was Arkansas-Texas in the Cotton Bowl in 2000. And when in order to get ready for that football game, Coach Frank Broyles came in and spoke to the team. And that was his message, was a lot about the history and the tradition behind that rivalry back in the Southwest Conference days. And I mean, there were tears in his eyes when he was talking to the team. And when that happens, I mean, if you're any type of human, individual with any kind of compassion, you understand how important that is to everybody outside of yourself, and that's something to play for. So that Texas-Arkansas rivalry will never die. It'll always be special. And the LSUs, the Ole Misses, we'll treat those as rivalries as well.
One of the few schools that don't consider Alabama their main rival, so I guess that's probably just as well the way the record's gone lately.
Well, we need to beat them before we consider them a rival. We got a long way to go.
Great stuff. Clint Sterner, the former quarterback at Arkansas. Thanks so much for dropping by.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Paul.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you back to the program. We've been talking about Urban Meyer and being stuck at sea with him. Yeah, I mean, there are fan bases and there are individuals. I would say, I mean, it's like the old joke, you got on a plane with a preacher or a rabbi and a priest, but I would think being stuck in a boat with Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, would be a pretty gruesome experience.
You are not kidding. My goodness. Although right now I'm sure the Ohio State, that cruise is not one college football fan base would want to be a part of that. I mean, you can go all the way from the southeast to the northwest. I mean, nobody wants to be on that cruise.
That was a big deal for a while, celebrity cruises. And I haven't seen it in some time, but obviously to raise a couple $1 million for cancer research, even Urban Meyer was willing to venture out. Someone came to us once, a travel agency, and said, we'd like to do a cruise with your callers. We never quite worked it out, but hey, not a bad idea. Can you imagine? You think we can get something going?
No, I mean, we've had this discussion before. Remember the guy waited? He was the longest ever to wait on hold. He waited on hold for 3 hours, and what he came up with was the Finebaum cruise.
Yeah, we may have to bring that back. I forgot we have talked. We have already talked about this, but this was prior to television. But it would be pretty dramatic. I'll just let it. Today, like today, when temperatures below freezing and snow on the ground, yeah, a cruise ship sounds pretty good.
Based on what we've heard on this show, though, I would be scared to death someone will be thrown overboard. I mean, if you put the Auburn and Alabama colors on there, Lance and Jumbo recently.
K-Dub and I-Man.
Maybe that's where we host the Charles and Marcus Throwdown.
Yeah.
We put it on a cruise.
I think that's a good idea.
We'll set sail right before SEC Media Day.
Hmm?
Come back. Either Marcus will come back on the cruise ship or Charles will. We'll find out.
I'm sharing a cabin with my 2 Alabama girls.
Come on.
No, you're not going to ask me to choose, are you?
At least get separate rooms.
I mean, come on. I mean, I've got my 2 babes back in Bama, one in Kimberly, one in Argo, so I wouldn't want to choose between those 2. Rich is next in Atlanta. Hey, Rich.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
If you invite me, I'm throwing Andy from Ohio overboard, so don't invite me.
Andy, I would say that the Lloyds of London would not agree to insure Andy on that cruise ship.
Hey, that was a neat segment you just had. It's hard to find angles in the off season, to talk about. So I thought that was pretty neat. And he kind of bid on Sumlin that you said, but he kind of glossed over Miles, and it got me thinking. In your opinion, Paul, and I know there's such inherent pressure already on being a coach in the SEC, but who do you think, if they fail to, like, say, meet reasonable expectations, now you're going to have to quantify what that would be, but which of these 4 do you think has the most pressure on them this upcoming season? Spurrier, Miles, Rick, or Sumlin?
Well, it's really a good question. I'm going to narrow it down to Spurrier and Miles. Here's why, Rich. Someone, I think, is still in pretty good shape. I mean, he's a year and a half removed from a year and 3 months removed from a new contract extension. So I think he's going to be okay. Rick just got a new contract extension a month ago. Whether that really means anything or not, it probably means a little bit. Miles, I think, is on the dark side of the moon, so to speak. Another bad year, and I think the pressure would be enormous. And I think Spurrier with I don't know what the number is, but if it looks like the program is going backwards, I think he'll start to hear things which would prompt him to contemplate retirement.
Right. No, I agree with you. But getting back to the Rick contract, and let's talk about our favorite punching bag, Mark Rick. I mean, first of all, Paul, his contract extension, it was that Mac Brown thing where he got more years, but the buyout keeps getting reduced. And, there's a certain reality with Rick. They've played 34 teams in the top 25 in, I think, the last 8 years. They lost 23 of those games. And in that same time frame, they've also lost 10 games to unranked teams, whether when they played them or at the end of the season.
But let me say this, though, Rich. I think there is, if you talk about what are the biggest disconnects in sports, I think one of the greatest disconnects is where the segment of the Georgia fan base is who want Mark Richt out versus the reality of the administration in Athens. And I don't claim to be an insider on everything, but I feel pretty comfortable that although you can make a case any day of the week of why Mark Richt's time has come, but I don't think you'll get anyone in official Athens or official UGA administration to agree. They're pretty steadfast in how they believe and what they think of Mark Richt as a head coach.
Okay, hypothetically, the blackout game repeats itself. Alabama rolls in there in October and destroys them. Do you still have the same opinion?
Well, I think if you look at the schedule, and we'll throw one up in a minute, and then see where it goes from there. I mean, there are some scenarios that can undo pretty much everything I've already said here. That would be devastating. If you add to that a loss at Tennessee. Let me go through the schedule quickly. I mean, you start off with Monroe. You have at Vanderbilt and South Carolina and Southern. I don't see any way Georgia loses one of those first 4 games. Rich, do you?
No.
Okay,
no.
Then you lose to Alabama at home. This is going to be a major game. You lose at Tennessee. You have Missouri at home, and then you have Florida. So, worst case, I guess, is losing all 4, isn't it?
Well, and Georgia, don't forget Georgia Tech. I know he's had a lot of success against them, but they did lose to him last year.
Okay, I'll give you a realistic worst-case scenario. Alabama and Tennessee beat Missouri, and then somehow lose to Florida again, that's 3 losses. At Auburn could be 4, and at Georgia Tech 5. Yeah, I would say the heat would be pretty strong.
Right. That's what I was saying. And that's why my whole codicil was falling short of realistic expectations. I mean, just trying to figure out what is realistic. And again, with Georgia, not to be redundant, this guy's lost 23 of 34 games against top 25 teams. That's not an opinion, Paul. That's a fact. All right, bud. Thanks for taking
listen,
my
I
call,
agree with
as
you,
always.
Rich. Thanks, Rich. No, I mean, listen, I'm not in the tank for Mark Richt. I'm just saying that it would take some extraordinary circumstances, but I think we just laid them out. You lose to your major rivals, and the major rivals being Auburn, Florida, Georgia Tech, Tennessee. It catches up to you very quickly, and it could happen. I mean, Georgia will likely be the pick. I think Alabama, Tennessee back to back is a tough stretch. You talk about all the ballyhooed atmosphere in Athens for that Alabama game, and then turn around and go to Tennessee, and Tennessee could be on a roll. Tennessee, that could be a frenzied atmosphere. So that is a possibility. Rich in Atlanta. Rick is in L.A. next. Hey, Rick.
Well, thank you, Paul. Hello, John. And it's always a pleasure to follow up with Rich. He's one of my favorite callers.
Thank you.
On your show. Great job. And I'll just follow up by saying this. I feel unless, like you said, the bottom just collapses, Coach Spurrier will go out when he feels it's time. Because in my opinion, I don't think the South Carolina fan will tell you, I don't know if we could get anybody could do a better job. I really don't. I really feel that way. So it'll be up to Coach Spurrier when he said, enough is enough. I'm getting out. I want to talk basketball. And first of all, I just want to say you kind of touched on it, and I totally agree what you had said. I don't feel Arkansas is going to beat Kentucky due to the fact I think Coach Cal will have them ready. Revenge. They know what Arkansas is about. I feel if you're going to catch a vulnerable Kentucky team, it will happen in the SEC tournament because you play that 3 days in a row and somebody on a neutral site, something could happen. I feel that's the only way they could get maybe tagged. Other than that, no, they're just the best team. And on that note, it's not just an SEC. Everybody's battling about who's stronger, who's weaker. I've said this on your show before, and I beat it like a drum. This is a nationwide problem. I'll give you an example. I'm a Pac-12 guy because of UCLA. Our conference is way down. Arizona's the best team we have, and yet they're not as good as they were last year, Paul. And I feel they can even lose to Utah coming up, going into Utah. You look at the Big Ten. Both Michigan State, Ohio State are not as good as they have been. The Big 12, Kansas is probably the weakest I've seen in years over there. You go to the ACC, I feel even Duke and Carolina are not as good as they've been over the years. So I feel it's not the SEC is down. I feel it's just across the nation in general. You have the nation is down. Outside of Kentucky, Wisconsin, and a few other teams you could add in there, it is down totally across the board.
Well, and basketball, Rick, it's hard to stay up for the obvious reasons that are inherent in the sport. So I agree with you on that, and that's why Kentucky is unique. I mean, Kentucky has last year's team and this year's team. That's unusual in Lexington.
And I'll tell you what, they're deep in the bench, and there is a hunger there right now. Again, we've said it, you've said it, everybody who you has a guest has said it. I feel it takes two things to beat this Kentucky team. You have to have a lights-out game of the year, and Kentucky's got to do something to beat themselves out there. I also like to thank you with the interview with Clint Sterner. Paul, an old-timer here, I still think when I think of Arkansas, I think of Texas. Just like Oklahoma, Nebraska. I'm just stuck in the old past. But I'll tell you what, Paul, 69, it was Nightmare Alley, horrible for me. I first got beat in a gut-wrencher to SC, 14-12, on a Jimmy Jones miracle throw. Follow-up the following week, I'm rooting for the Hogs, and they had that 14-0 lead, get beat. And the key was Texas had made a mistake. Arkansas was in line to get some points, and they threw a pick back, and they came out with nothing, and that was a killer. And I'll tell you what, that Montgomery, Dykus, Burnett team was without a doubt one of the finest Arkansas teams I was fortunate to get to be able to watch.
Thank you very much, Rick. It's always a great pleasure. We'll take a short break. Much more conversation, football, basketball, and cruises. Being stuck at sea with Urban Meyer.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
A lot of cool conversations going on, one of which involves Mizzou and A&M, which coaching jobs have the most upsides. Two of ESPN's finest, Sam Kahn Jr. and Greg Osendorf, have written on the subject. And Sam and Greg join us. Gentlemen, good afternoon. I hope all is well.
Everything's great. How are you, Paul?
Very well. Appreciate both of you joining us here. Let's start with Sam. Sam, you I love you spent a lot of time covering A&M, so naturally you're showing up here and chiming in on Missouri, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you're just one of those guys that loves a warm welcome the next time you show up at the A&M complex. So why Mizzou?
You know, I think there's a lot of room to grow. When you talk about A&M's job, I think A&M's job is a premier job now. But Mizzou's, I think, has a lot of room to grow, certainly in reputation. But they've got a lot of things to work with. They've been improving their facilities. You know, they spent $45 million on expanding the east side of their stadium last year. They're making plans for a new football facility on the south side of the stadium that'll have new coaches' offices, locker rooms, weight rooms, training rooms, the whole deal. They're certainly willing to pay their coaches. I mean, Gary Pinkel's salary is in the top 20 nationally in college football. Their assistant coach salary pool is in the top 25 nationally, and they win. And I think that right now, with the way the SEC East is in such flux, and I think there's an opening there. You see that they've won 2 SEC East titles already, and with everything kind of wide open, with no real dominant team in the SEC East, I think if they can continue winning, you can continue to build things like the fan base and the donor base and all those key things that you need in order to make yourself a big-time presence in college football.
What say you, Greg?
Yeah, I agree with Sam. I think it's a little different, though. I think with Texas A&M, they're obviously a little more established than Missouri. It's probably a top 15 job right now, but I think it has potential to be a top 5 job. And since A&M moved to the SEC, it's really helped them with recruiting. They're the only SEC school in the state of Texas right now. And you see the money they're putting into the program. They just spent over $500 million on renovations, everything from Kyle Field to the coach's office to facilities, all that. And you look at, you know, they're also willing to spend money with coaches, too, going out and getting John Chavis from LSU as a new defensive coordinator. And so, to me, if they can start winning games, that's the next step for this A&M program. If they can start winning games and making the playoff and go that route, I think it can be a top 5 job nationally. And I think there's room to grow there, even though it's already still more established. I think it has potential to be a top job in the SEC.
Yeah, listen, I think everyone would agree that Kevin Sumlin is a top-notch coach. He got that huge raise a little over a year ago. But let me ask both of you, starting with Sam, because you're on the ground there. I mean, what if next year you don't see much improvement? The new stadium facilities, a Taj Mahal facility for the athletes. I mean, what if A&M limps in with very little to show for all the money and the new glitz and glamour? Where will this program be, and where will the fans be on Coach Sumlin?
I think you're going to have a lot of questions being asked, and I think the pressure starts to crank up if you don't start seeing some success in terms of wins. And they've won. I mean, they've 28-11 so far in their first 3 years, but they got to start making progress towards winning something of significance, start contending for an SEC West title. You know, we talked about Missouri. They've been in Atlanta in the SEC Championship. That's where A&M wants to be. Granted, they play in different divisions, a different deal, but when you spend more than $500 million on facilities, when you spend, $1.7 million on your defensive coordinator and $5 million on your head coach, that's money you're spending to win championships, not finish 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th in the SEC West. So certainly you want to see some progress. They went 8-5 this year with a young quarterback and some young players at the key positions on offense and on defense. And you've got some of those guys back. You're recruiting well. They've got to start getting towards that double-digit win total. They went 11-2 that first year. They got to get to the 10-2, 11-1 type season and making those kinds of strides. Otherwise, I think you're going to start have people asking questions. Hey, what are we getting out of the money we're spending?
Yeah, that's really a good point. Greg, do you agree?
Yeah, I would. And I think what puts even more pressure on Kevin Sumlin is with all the money they're putting in, with everything going in his program, I think if he does leave or if they were to get rid of him, I think that's one of those jobs that they could go get a big name at A&M. They could go get a guy, whether it be from the NFL, from the college ranks, that could really turn the dial, if you will. And if someone can't get done, they can find somebody who will. And I don't think the last couple of years, they went to the Chick-fil-A Bowl before it was in the New Year's Six. They went to the Liberty Bowl this year. And I don't think that's not going to cut it for this program. And they got to start making the New Year's Six and maybe making the playoffs soon if Kevin Sumlin wants to stay around. And it wasn't long ago when we were talking about Kevin Sumlin as a potential NFL guy. And now we're talking about him maybe, losing his job in a year if he doesn't turn things around. So it's amazing how things change. One good season could turn it all around for him. But I do think he needs to start winning games sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and Sam, I mean, I don't remember a season quite as much as like following a yo-yo or the Dow Jones as this one with A&M. I mean, starting with that first Thursday night game, and then the wheels came off, and losing 59-0, but then turning the Auburn game, and then falling apart again. You've covered this team a while. I realize it ended well, but where are the fans right now on this program, and how much of this is dictated by where the University of Texas is as well?
I think there's some optimism there now because of who you brought in as defensive coordinator, because the biggest weakness at A&M or in Kevin Sumlin's career has been defense. I mean, his teams have always been good offensively. They've usually had good quarterbacks, but defense has been the Achilles heel. So they went out and spent a lot of money to get a guy with skins on the wall with 2 decades of SEC experience in John Chavis. So if he can do what they think he can, and I think the fan base is optimistic that can happen, then if the offense does what you think it will do or what it normally does under a Kevin Sumlin coach team, then I think you feel like the fans feel like you have a recipe for success there. But and Texas is certainly a factor in all this because that's their major recruiting rival. They don't play them anymore, but they still battle them for recruits. They're still doing really well in terms of beating Texas head-to-head for recruits, but there's no doubt that there's a chance for them to step on their throat and really take full control, full stranglehold of the state if they can capitalize. If they can have like a 10-2 season this year and have a ton of success and build off that momentum, I think they can really start to put that foot forward in front of Texas, because I think that they have been ahead of Texas so far, the last couple of years in terms of, the reputation, the win total, the recruiting. But, I thought Charlie Strong did a good job late in his recruiting class of building some momentum. They were able to get a few guys that A&M was after, and there's some optimism there in Austin too. So I think it's important for A&M's sake that they've got to start getting those results in order to kind of keep some distance and establish some distance between those two programs.
And, Greg, finally on Missouri, 2 surprising years in a row. Last year a little bit better than this year, but still a lot of optimism. What's the future look like for the Tigers under Gary Pinkel?
It's funny. Monday I wrote that it's one of the toughest jobs in the SEC, and today Sam wrote that it's got the most upside. And I think that sums up Missouri well, because I agree with Sam. There's a lot of upside in Columbia and with what they're doing right now. They just got a top 20 recruiting class and one of the top players in the country in Terry Beckner Jr., but it's not easy to win at Missouri. And we haven't seen it much in the SEC. They've won the East twice, but it didn't look that way. But they're not exactly in SEC country. They're not in the Southeast, so that makes it difficult to recruit. They don't have the facilities and the stadium that some of the other programs do, like in Alabama, like in Auburn, like in Texas A&M for that matter. And so I think it's not easy, but they have the right guy in charge, and that's Gary Pinkel. And we'll keep doubting him, and he'll keep winning, and that's kind of the way it's going. I don't see that changing. And obviously they have Matty Mock back this year at quarterback, Russell Hansberg running back. I think they have a team that could compete in the East, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them win again. But I don't know what the long-term future is, but as long as Gary Pinkel's there, I think they'll be right in that mix in the SEC East and getting to Atlanta, every other year or whatever it is. I think they can compete every year in the East.
Greg Ossendorf and Sam Kahn Jr. talking about the two newbies in the SEC. Both have had a lot of success. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Always good to catch up.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul. Take care.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Linda is calling next in Alabama. Hey, Linda.
Hey, Paul.
You ready for the blizzard of 2015?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, half of the state. It's coming. So is what they say, span the man. And I know you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Said it's coming. So.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm honored to be one of your babes from Alabama.
Yeah.
What an honor.
I don't want to play Solomon here, and but you and Debbie are equally special to me.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, and I'm sure Debbie does too. I would love to accompany you on a cruise, but I'd be very afraid that when we got ashore and you got back home, that there would be divorce papers sitting on the dining room table waiting for you to sign them.
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm not trying to go 50 Shades of Gray here, but we had Linda and Debbie on together. Ladies meet each other. Linda, meet Debbie.
Hey, Debbie, how are you, girl? Hi, Linda. I'm doing great. And thank you so much for your kind words yesterday.
Oh, you're more than welcome, girl.
And
you're more than welcome.
Wouldn't you just love to be in a room with Paul?
Yes. And I know
we'd even have to bring John in.
Yes, we would. We'd have to have both of our men there,
Heck yeah.
We can share a room, and they can share a room, and then we can just share them.
And poor Paul, I tell you, he might be divorced, but we can bring him back to Birmingham and share him.
Yes, we can.
Paul's just shaking his head.
I know, I see
I love them glasses
I wish I'd take the camera over there so we could see John, our stud muffin, and see if he's grinning from ear to ear.
Yeah, really.
I don't want to get in the middle of this, ladies.
Oh, come on, John. John traded his girlfriend.
Have you ladies ever been, Linda, Debbie, have you ever been on a cruise before?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either.
Neither have I.
I have not been on one, and I don't really know much about them other than I know you can get a small cabin or a big cabin. I mean, we work for Disney. Don't they have their own cruise line at Disney? So
yeah, they do. My daughter lives in Los Angeles, and she can get cruises pretty cheap out of there.
Well, no, don't worry about that. No, I think our bosses can handle it. I mean, they own the cruise ship, but don't they own the cruise ship or not?
Yeah, just so they can send their employees out for excursions out on the Mediterranean.
We want a big cabin.
Where would you ladies like to go? I mean, would you like to do Bahamas, the West Indies, Mexico? You tell me. Alaskan. I've always heard the Alaskan cruise is cool.
I hear the Alaskan cruise is wonderful.
I've always wanted to do that. I just don't know if I want to spend a week getting to Alaska to go on a week-long cruise, but we'll figure it out.
A week, if it took us a week to get there, that's more time we could spend with you, right, Debbie?
That's right, Linda. Hey, me and you need to meet and have lunch one day.
Yes.
Well, Argo and Kimberly aren't exactly too far away from each other.
No, we're not. I know where Argo is.
I don't know exactly where Kimberly is, Debbie.
Yeah, we need to.
It's north of the city.
To kidnap Paul.
Yeah, Linda, Kimberly's. It's just north of Birmingham, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Morris, Kimberly, and then Warrior.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're 20 minutes away.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Then,
and we'll need to go first fly up and
Linda, Debbie, thanks.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
More of your calls, and Nathaniel is next up in Tennessee. What do you say, Nathaniel?
Hello?
Yeah. Okay, Nathaniel. Man of many words. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Glad to hear it.
I was calling about it. My girlfriend and I just went on that Alaskan cruise about 6 months ago.
Tell me about
Royal
it.
Caribbean. It was
Okay.
nice. We went to Juneau, Icy Straits. You
Okay.
know, I ate a lot of ice cream, and it wasn't too bad. The weather was pretty good.
You're in Tennessee. Would you fly to Seattle first and then go to Alaska? Is that the best way?
We actually went to Canada, and then we
Okay.
got to see some Seattle on the way back, but a lot of layovers, but it was pretty nice. It was pretty nice.
Okay. Well, I will put that down on my. I hate to use the word bucket list. It sounds like I'm about to kick the bucket, but.
You might want to go on Royal Caribbean, though, instead of going on that Disney. I hear that Disney, it's a little bit, a lot of kids, you know, might not have as much fun as you're wanting to have.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the best idea.
Okay, well, you know, Disney does run the company, so good.
Yeah. No, we're not allowed to say anything about the Disney cruises other than they're really great, and everyone should go on one.
They're absolutely wonderful. Everybody.
Meanwhile,
should do that.
go see Frozen again tonight for the 15th time.
Okay. Go Vols. You have a good one.
Thank you. No, this is not a day I'm criticizing the company. James is next in Texas. How are you, James?
Well, I'm still kind of sweating and distracted too from London Debbie. I mean, I don't know. You know, well, I think I wanted to call about the interview. You know, with the two guys that were focusing on A&M and Missouri. You know, I understood both of them saying the Missouri job. What was the question you asked them? Which is
Well,
the
I
better
think
job?
the question was which one has the most upside, and I think that's why the Missouri job won out. I mean, I think already you consider A&M to be a plum job.
Okay, yeah,
Missouri, I
quite
think
understand
is
the
more of
question.
a. I mean, Pinkel has made Missouri into a better job. But I mean, if Pinkel resigned today, just for the sake of argument, I don't think you would look at Missouri as a job you have to have. If someone resigned, a lot of people would want that job.
Well, look at it this way. How long has Pinkel been there? I mean, at least 10 years?
He's been there about 12, 14 years, yeah.
You know, he could probably still average 8 or 9 wins a year and keep his job, you know, till he decides to leave. That's not going to happen at A&M, you know. I mean, that's the difference in those two jobs. And, you know, I'm more of an A&M fan, but you know, sometimes the bar is raised so high, and you know that you wonder if anybody's ever going to be able to achieve it there. You know, they've got the right guy, I think.
Well, no, but let's be realistic, James. For all of the glitz and glamour of Manziel and of this program, the last 2 or 3 years have mainly been transitional, and A&M has to do better. You know that.
Yeah, and I think you know part of the problem. If you go back and you look at Sumlin at Houston, you know those offenses were more balanced than what you've seen since he's been at A&M. Now there was balance in the offense when Manziel was there because he ran the ball a lot. But you know they've had good running backs, and at times they've just kind of forgotten them. I think you know. I mean, that some people might argue that their running backs aren't that good, but they just get away from the game plan.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, and I think he's fortunate too that UT Austin is struggling right now, because if Texas was playing in the national semifinals, the heat would be on considerably, and right now Texas. I mean, for all the hype about recruiting, it still looks like a program.
You know, the thing is that I saw. You know, I've actually, you know, I'm more of an A&M guy. At times I defended what Strong was doing there. You know, especially the disciplinary stuff, and you know they looked pretty good toward the middle of the year. But you know, they had some coaching changes that left me scratching my head. I mean, how do you know, start up a new coaching staff, and then you go out and you fire two of your position coaches after the first year? That just, you know, it strikes me as he's a little tyrant. And you know, I think he got rid of a guy that did a pretty good job this year of developing a 1,000-yard receiver when there, you know, there was there early in the season, a lot of people wondered if they were going to have any kind of a passing game. And Harris, you know, I'm talking about Les Koenig.
No, you're a really good point. Hey, thank you very much for the call from Houston. I look down and on this cold, snowy day. Warmth has come from the phone console. The one and only Big Swagu is joining us. What's up, my man?
What's up, Pete? Man, I'm trying not to jump off the side of my house because I'm stuck in. We have icy roads, so I can't get outside.
Man, I was watching the Weather Channel last night, and that town, one of the largest cities in the country, just got completely shut, didn't it?
Man, I don't know how them dudes in prison do it, man. It is bad.
That's why you don't want to go.
I'm telling you, when you have to be in one place all day, that's enough for me, let alone years. Sheesh.
Man.
What's up? What's going on in Carolina? I heard you had two of your show girlfriends on today.
Yeah, I was going to ask you for some little brother, big brother advice. I have these two ladies in the Birmingham area that would like to go on a cruise with me, and we had them on together, and sound pretty good to me. Do you advise that or not?
Nah, I advise against that. Be careful. Be careful, P-Town. Be careful. You've become a national figure, man. They're going to start coming out the woodworks. People going to start asking you for money. You're going to get better looking. And there's going to be a facade that you got some hair in that little bald spot right there. So be careful when you get too on.
So suddenly what you're saying is suddenly you get a lot better looking, right?
Yeah, especially when because you got your pockets a lot bigger.
Oh, okay.
So them women, they going to start coming from everywhere. John know about that, man. John still got all his hair. Me and you less fortunate.
Well, yeah, less fortunate from a follicle standpoint, I guess, right?
Hey, you guys are pretty good. I'd love to be in your shoes.
Oh, man.
I just want to be the Big Swagu for one day.
That makes two of us.
Man.
Hey, your life would be changed forever, brother. Like Jerry told me about them boots, you ain't even see one of them.
I'll tell you what, Swag.
How's the weather in Charlotte?
Oh, they're great. Don't go anywhere. We have a question that we would like to pose to you that we asked earlier. We're going to put you to work today on this cold, icy day in the Metroplex, and a blizzard on the way to the south and to us. So don't go anywhere. The Big Swagu will come back and talk some serious football with him when we return.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Marcus Spears, we were talking during the break about what fan base he would not want to be stuck with. He gave us a couple of pretty funny answers. But Marcus, we did think, though, and we'll move on to a serious subject, that if we get this cruise ship going, maybe we can get you and Charles. We're hoping to get you on the undercard for Floyd and Manny, but I don't think we've gotten that approved.
Hey, if y'all pull that off and we got that undercard, I wouldn't have to work ever again in my life.
You do have my suite already booked for Vegas that weekend, don't you?
Oh yeah, we already good, P-Town. We ringside, $65,000 a ticket. So I expect you to send my check in the mail, and then I got us the basketball suite at the Palm. So we good.
Okay.
The Maloof brothers hooked us up.
Good deal. I do know Gavin Maloof from years ago, so I can handle you on that. Let's talk some football. We asked a question earlier about putting a franchise tag on a particular player. What was the criterion again?
Well, Marcus, we were thinking about earlier today, you have teams coming, players coming into next season. Who would you put the franchise tag on? Obviously, you've been around the NFL. You know how teams use that. If there's one guy you combine leadership and skill, who would it be in the SEC for next year?
Holy man. You know what? I would have to say Nick Chubb. I would have to say Nick Chubb. I think he's one of those guys that you cannot lose at the University of Georgia, especially with what he was able to do as a freshman. And when you think about the most impactful player that wasn't, already known, it was Nick Chubb. So you gotta put yourself in a position to have him on the team. Even though when you franchise guys, they're a little disgruntled, but they realize it's a light at the end of the tunnel that they can get money, and I think Nick Chubb would be that guy for me.
So Nick Chubb would be your first pick. Who would you go after that? I'm sure one of those quarterbacks at LSU, right?
can't stand when you do stuff like that, man. It would be my next franchise guy will probably be Dobbs at Tennessee.
Ooh.
I think, Joshua Dobbs, man, with the trajectory of that program right now and the way he was able to instill some lifeblood in that offense, I think he's a guy Tennessee has to have in order to have the type of year that they're expecting, especially with the type of recruiting they've been able to do. So it would be Joshua Dobbs.
Marcus, we get calls in from Vol fans all the time. I mean, they are about as upbeat. I mean, you've experienced it, having gone up there, been around that program. Are you buying? Are you heavily buying Tennessee stock right now?
Paul, when I think about it, man, I tell you what, if you think of a program that's as trendy right now in college football, it has to be Tennessee. With the ability, what they did in recruiting this year was more impressive than last year, because last year it came out of nowhere. No one was expecting them to have that type of recruiting class. This year, when the expectation is there for you to have success, it's a little bit more difficult. And I know that sounds crazy, but you always look at when you're at the top of the mountain or when you're having success in one area, people are always looking for you to have that glitch in the system where it doesn't actually work out like you thought it would. But I think with Butch and the way he has this football team playing and the way they ended last season and the guys that came in this year, man, it could be, I mean, they have all of the pieces. If the offensive line gels and they're able to play successful football on the offensive side, I can't see why they wouldn't be a real contender in the East to get to the SEC championship.
That is interesting because I mean I agree with you, but you know the Florida fans are still talking smack. You know, we know how long it's been since Tennessee has beaten the Gators. We know how long it's been since Tennessee has beaten Alabama. They've had some moderate success, but that's an interesting one. Looking at the SEC West, I mean we know about Alabama, but if you had to, would you go with Auburn? Would you go with the trendy Arkansas Razorbacks? Would you take LSU? I mean, which team do you think will make the most noise outside? Let me make it outside of the state of Alabama. Let me make it that way because I think both Auburn and Alabama are going to be top 10 teams.
Oh man, hard for me to say this, but I think Chavis going to Texas A&M. I think the way their only hiccup has been the inability to play successful defense. And now that they have a guy that can put those pieces in the right area, in the right assignments, and put them in a position to be successful, I think they have the talent. Now the secondary is what we have to find out about with Texas A&M. But up front, you know, they have probably the best pass rusher in the SEC. They're going to be able to get after people. The ability, how they recruit it. With Matt coming in, they'll have a presence on the inside. So it's a very uptick at A&M, and I think more so than anything for Coach Sumlin, he needs the defense to play really good football because eventually, you know, when you have a program like that and when they're having success and when they're instilling as much dollar into making you successful, the expectation is for them to win the SEC championship and play in the college football playoff, based off what they're putting into the program. So I think if you don't have success, you start having those talks about, is he the right guy to get it done? And that's not a knock on Kevin Sumlin, but we all know head coaches are the scapegoat when things don't go the way they're supposed to go or the way they're projected. So I think Coach Chavis, being the defensive coordinator at A&M, gives them the biggest upside outside of the Alabama universities. So, you know, for me, I'll have a close eye on them because if they play better defense, their offense is as prolific as anybody.
Let me ask you this. You talked about, you know, could things change for Kevin Sumlin? You mentioned John Chavis going there. I know you're an LSU man, true and true, but talk a little bit about what LSU faces next year. Still confusion at the quarterback situation again. And the schedule doesn't ever get easy when you're playing in the SEC West. So if things don't change, and if LSU comes in, loses to Bama again, that game is in Tuscaloosa, where is the program under Les Miles, and how patient will LSU fans be, or will they be patient at all?
Well, it's going to be difficult if they can't get consistent quarterback. Well, not even consistent quarterback play. The quarterback is going to have to make a difference on the football team in order for them to have success. I think defensively LSU will always be okay because they'll have a tremendous amount of athletes and they'll have a secondary that's usually pretty good. I don't know Coach Steele real well, but I know around LSU people talked about him and they're high on him. They say he's a great recruiter. He was and he's gonna be a really good defensive coordinator. So I don't think that's the question there. But offensively, it's been proven time and time again. You look at Ohio State, they went 3 deep at quarterback. Nobody thought that they would have 3 really, really good quarterbacks, but that position has always been in football and will always be the determining factor in how good you are, and that's why they get so much pub, and that's why they get paid the big bucks. If you don't have successful quarterback play, it's really difficult to have the type of season you want to have. So I think if they go into the year with the same questions, not knowing who will start, not knowing if the guy that's under center is going to be able to lead and produce points and produce offense, I think it's going to be one of those seasons again where you have a 8-4, 9-3, maybe mediocre season in the eyes of LSU faithful, and then those questions will start to surface. What do we do? And then you add on top of that, let's just say they don't play great defense. Then the question is going to be, why did we lose Coach Chavis? You know how it is 2020 when everything is played out and all the questions of next season it starts to come into play leading into the next one. So I firmly believe that if they don't get this quarterback situation figured out, and if they don't have a guy that they can determine who's going to be the starter and can produce, they'll be in trouble like they were last year. Because the games that they lost, and I'm not putting it all on the quarterback, but if you have better quarterback play, you may have won a few more of those games.
Let me end with a basketball question. We had Billy Kennedy on the other day, and he was asking about you. He said he loves when you're on the show. And I said, Coach, you're a Louisiana guy. You coached in that state. Was Marcus really that good in basketball? The story, as most of us know, you were heavily recruited in basketball. He said you were pretty good. You just had a great cast around you.
Wow. I did not expect that from Coach Kennedy, man, because I was the man on the basketball court. Nah, man, I had a bunch of offers from schools all over the country, and basketball was probably I was more passionate about it in high school, and even going into college because I had to work at basketball to get so good. Football came so natural, and it was just big and fast and do this and you'll have success. But basketball, I had to work on it. I had to work on skill. I had to work on, I just had to work on being a really good basketball player. And then to see that pay off with the opportunity to play college basketball and have a free ride for 4 years, it really would. I enjoyed that process of being recruited in basketball and football and having coaches come in and say, if you play basketball, we don't want to let you play football, and vice versa. And then some coaches, like Coach Saban, said, well, you can do both, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to do both because the football was so demanding. But it was a great process. But Coach Kennedy is having success. He at A&M now, right?
Oh, yeah. Hey, by the way, a what-if question. Because you really were good and you were recruited by everyone. You played 9 years in the NFL, but the NBA careers, as long as you stay reasonably healthy, you can go pretty long. Look at what we have going on right now.
Yeah.
So if you had decided, okay, I'm going basketball, what would you be doing right now? Would you still be in the league?
I don't know, P-Town, man. If I would have been blessed to have the opportunity to go to the NBA, I probably would still be playing. I'll be a lot leaner and a lot smaller than I am right now.
And you can't eat that. So, you can't eat like you eat in the NBA, Marcus.
No, you can't do that in the NBA, man. But that's why they pay you the big bucks. I think that money would have been a big motivating factor for me to stay lean and able to get up and down that court. But Barkley did it, man, and that's what they used to call me in high school, Little Barkley. So I think I would have been all right.
Yeah, man, as great as you are as a football commentator, imagine you, Barkley, and Shaq on TNT.
Oh, man, we wouldn't get any work done. We wouldn't get any work. P-Town, me and you barely get any work done.
No,
so
we don't.
I know we wouldn't get any work done on that set.
Yeah, well,
the Big Swagu never wants to be in a situation where guys try to out-funny me, man, because I'm the funny.
Well, I've got to tell you, 2 weeks ago today, the Big Swagu and SEC Nation did the Big Apple, and I'm still telling stories about how you wowed them on Madison Avenue. That was a fun trip.
Man, it was a blast. And P-Town, in the midst of that, man, I just couldn't believe it was happening. And you heard me tell a story about being a kid from South Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and having the opportunity to, be a part of sales meetings in New York City. It was a culmination of a lot of things, man. It was an emotional time for me, and I wouldn't have rather spend it with anybody else other than you, Joe, and Tim, man. So it was a blast for me. It was an eye-opening experience, and I hope we can do it again. I want to sell everything now.
Yeah, no, I will tell you this. We met with clients from all across the world. Big time brands, but man, that Buffalo Wild Wings lady, she was all over you. She knew you ate the product.
It didn't take me long to get that lemon pepper out, did it, man?
Yeah, I'm like going, I hope she doesn't ask me my favorite wing at Buffalo Wild Wings. I'm like going, okay, I was struggling, and you blurted it out. You sold the deal.
Yeah. P-Town, she wouldn't have bought it anyway, bro. She wouldn't have ever believed in a million years you ain't wings from BW3.
That's why I said in the corner.
Maybe some celery sticks with ranch dressing. You would have got that one over.
Man, I was all over the kale, carrot, and celery stick lady. They were signing me up. Hey, listen, I know it's a crazy day out there. I hope the weather clears up and you can get out of the house with the kids and the family. But thanks for keeping us company for a couple of minutes.
All right, bro. I appreciate it, man. Y'all keep it cool. And as I always say, tell John to do something.
I'll try, Swag.
Thanks, Swag.
All right,
good.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.